Yeah, happy to be here. I'm excited. I've missed a bunch of them, but yeah.
Thanks. How about you, Johanna?
Hello, I'm calling in from Chestnut Ridge, and yeah, happy to be here. Just coming in from the cold, rainy outside. Looking forward to hearing about other outside adventures. Happy to see you all.
Hey, how about you, Zuri? Oh, and James too. Sweet. Your guys, I can't hear you. There they are. Do you happen to be calling from Wisconsin? Right. How about you, Elena?
Just calling. In Chestnut Ridge. Uh-oh, I'm getting another call. Decline. Oh. I'm in Chestnut Ridge, and it's cold and rainy here, like she said. And I'm just trying to figure out, Nathaniel Williams, you mean?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't even know. And Abigail?
Dancy.
No.
Yeah. Yes.
No. No.
Yeah.
Wait a second. What? That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow. I just obviously had no idea. That's incredible. I'm glad to know, because I'd be pretty, I'm spending a lot more time up there, and I'd be pretty surprised to know. I thought he was dating. Yeah. Great. That's amazing. Cool.
Good scene. It's a good scene.
Wow. It's amazing.
How about you, Gracie?
I'm calling from Glenmore, Pennsylvania, and the weather here, it's not rainy, but it's pretty cloudy and cold. I'm feeling hopeful today.
You said it's hopeful today?
I'm feeling hopeful today.
Where are you calling from?
Glenmore, Pennsylvania.
Oh,
cool. Where are you calling from, Ariel-Paul?
I'm looking out the windows onto the west arm of Kootenai Lake, which is which feeds into the Columbia River, just around the border of Canada and the USA, the Washington, British Columbia border. The Columbia River then goes down and out into past Portland, out into the Pacific Ocean. So we're kind of in this little mountain valley here in the Selkirk Mountains, town of Nelson. Yeah. Homeland of the Sinaiaks. So, yeah, what?
Sinaiaks, just hearing it, yeah.
The Sinaiaks, yeah. Who are disrupted because they're actually were named extinct by the Canadian government like 50 years ago, and because they were moved, they're part of a reservation across the border in Washington, but a lot of their burial grounds are here. It's been a long process to try to restore their presence in the area.
I'm sure we'll be hearing some more in that regard coming up. Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Wonder if someone has a verse.
I have a verse that I'd like to.
Oh, great.
kick us off with.
Cool.
Yeah. So this verse was given by Steiner, and as I understand, it's a verse for the North, maybe even related to the group soul, the Canadian group soul. Anyway, it goes like this. The stars once spoke to man. It is world destiny that they are silent now. But in that growing silence, to be aware of the silence can become pain for earthly man. But in the deepening silence, there grows and ripens what man speaks to the stars. I'm going to speak it a couple more times. The stars spoke once to man. It is world destiny that they are silent now. To be aware of the silence can become pain for earthly man. But in the deepening silence, there grows and ripens what man speaks to the stars. The stars spoke once to man. It is world destiny that they are silent now. To be aware of the silence can become pain for earthly man. But in the deepening silence, there grows and ripens what man speaks to the stars.
Really gorgeous. Yeah, I'm so grateful to offer that. And if I could just give you a little introduction to land in. So the Inside Open mic will go for about another hour. And Ariel-Paul is, has been like the kind of granite anchor of youth section endeavors. My whole time being in relationship with all these things, and he's always been carrying these questions about indigenous communities, First Nations, different spirit streams, and how all these can work together with what anthroposophy is bringing, and really wanting a free, inclusive, collaborative, dynamic, spiritual picture. And in one way or another, those avenues haven't always been able to like integrate or collaborate or be visible. And he's a father, really a beautiful, creative educator for young children, and really working with questions of sustainability and community and ingenuity. And yeah, I'm just grateful that this thread and this aspect of sharing some of the other regions of his spiritual inquiry and personal development, finding new ways to connect on a personal way, are able to start weaving in and building a new picture. So yeah, maybe I can just pass it to you, Ariel-Paul, and knowing that this isn't necessarily about indigenous, an indigenous practice, but bringing in the picture of the stars and the land as you did, feels resonant and coming from that same interest. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, that verse just felt so perfect as a jumping off point in connecting these different what could be different streams of spiritual development. Certainly, the inspiration to offer this presentation came out of a fast, 4-day vision fast that I did this fall in September in the wilderness, just not far from where I live. And that experience of the pain of the silence, going out into the wilderness, into the forest, and just being there alone for days with an express intention of doing nothing. I feel like I have a very visceral experience of that painful silence that is addressed in that verse. And really what I want to emphasize most in this sharing is the potency of that silence, of being with that silence, and the kind of surprising realization that that's, for me personally, that I had never experienced that in my life, and that many people go through life without ever having that opportunity. And the opportunity being doing nothing, simply put, being with themselves for days without doing anything and without any distraction. And I'm just curious to hear because I was so surprised in myself to discover that actually that had never occurred in my life, and might never have if I hadn't made this conscious choice. What your experiences are, if that resonates, if you've had any experience of being alone and doing nothing for a period of time. I just want to open up the floor to hear.
I'm smiling because I did a vision quest, 3-day solo my senior year of high school. It's part of the curriculum as an option. You could sign up to do this, and it would be, you would go with a whole group of your classmates, and there was this whole, I think it took probably about 6 months of class once a week to meet and just talk about what that would look like and prepare, and then suddenly the time came to go on this journey, and we all packed into the car and headed down to Santa Barbara. This was in San Francisco, and we got there. One and a half days, everyone together preparing, and then the third day we went off on our own for the 3-day solo. No food and by yourself, and you wanted to find a good place to kind of set up camp. And I realized that I really hadn't given it much thought until that moment. And when I'm looking for my campsite, I'm looking for a place, and I can't find anything that feels right. And finally, it's like, okay, Johanna, you have to pick something. You just have to just find a place. You can't keep looking. The teachers were all saying, okay, where are you gonna be? And I'm just like, I don't know. And so I just finally picked a place, and it looked like there had been other people camping there. And there was a little old fire that was there, and a couple burnt remnants from whoever had been camping there before. But it was right next to the main trail, the hiking trail. And so I'm setting up camp, and I'm seeing all of these hikers just passing by me. And, so it wasn't very secluded. And I started kind of freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, what did I just sign up for? And I just told myself, it'll be fine. It's only 3 days. And I realized I hadn't given it any thought, whether or not this was something I wanted to do, whether this was something that would be good for me, whether I was ready for this. And I became very overwhelmed, and I had to cut it short and head back to the main camp. I just wasn't ready for that kind of an experience. And one thing that I had so it was a very challenging thing to go through. A lot of emotions that I'd been kind of putting down just all came up. And it was a lot. So, and I wanted to go home so badly. But we were there, we were stuck there, and I was back at camp with all the teachers, and the third day I decided, okay, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to try going out on my own. And so I did. I found a nice spot across the river, secluded, away from hikers, and set up camp, and I was there for the 24 hours alone, and was able to enjoy it. And it just really made me realize that this is something you want to really think about before you do and be ready for, and take it a little bit seriously. And I hadn't done that, so lesson learned. But I'm glad that I was able to go out and do that, get a little bit out of it, and experience that 24-hour on my own.
Thanks, Johanna. So I'm hearing this kind of surprise of like, oh yeah, this is maybe a little bit of a nonchalance around it, and then kind of coming up against the face of how intense it actually can be. And yeah, nice that you were able to come up against that threshold and then kind of draw back from it, and then get another chance to go a little deeper into it. But yeah, I can imagine at that age that there's a lot that you take with you into the woods.
I thought it was just going to be a fun way to go camping with my friends. Yeah.
Anybody else have an experience they want to?
I can speak to that. For sure. Yeah. I think the first time I really experienced that solitude was in Laos, but it was different because I think I was seeking that solitude as a kind of escape from I had been traveling for some time in kind of this way that was very social. And so I would be traveling, I would be hitchhiking, and then many people would invite me to their homes, or I would tent one day, but I would immediately be moving to the next place, to the next place, to the next place. So it was always this constant movement. And then at one point I just got so overwhelmed and I realized that I just want to stop. I just want to not move it for a little while. And so I was in Laos. I think I was in a town called Vang Vieng, and this town is known for lots of caves. So I went into the wilderness, and I've hiked a lot as a child and growing up. I was thought, oh, I know the wilderness. I've gone on many day hikes and all of this, and I was like, oh, I know the wilderness, but I didn't bring anything with me. I didn't bring any food.
Oh.
I didn't, I was like, I'm gonna fast for 3 days and I'm gonna just be there. And and I found this cave, and I get to the cave. I'm like, this is awesome. I made a little fire, and I see that the cave goes back deeper. And so I made my fire. I sat by the fire. I relaxed. The first day, and then it got dark, and then the jungle woke up, and it was so loud. It was like there was a siren. It sounded like a siren, but I think it was an animal because I had hiked in quite a ways. It was like a siren, and I was like in the dark, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go into the cave, and I recognize the value of caves now because there's not so much life in the cave. And so I was in this cave, and I felt safe in the cave, and I wake up in the morning and I see that the cave kind of goes deeper in. So I go in, and it goes pretty far, and I have my light, but I was afraid that it was gonna die on me. So every day, that was kind of my adventure for the day, is I would go a little bit deeper and then scurry back because I was afraid it was gonna die. My light was gonna die. And when I first left the cave in the morning, and I saw this jungle with all of these species and plants and animals that I never encountered before, it was really overwhelming, and I didn't know what was safe and what wasn't safe. I was just so terrified. I think I spent the first day in the cave just kind of like and then I was like, okay, well, I think I have to like explore a little bit or something. And then I go out and I venture into the forest a little bit, and then I come back and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just sit here, and I found these different fruit trees. There's lots of fruit trees, so I didn't end up fasting, but I ate a little bit of fruit from the fruit trees. But there was this one experience, I think it was on the second day, where I was in the cave. It was nighttime for the second day, and it was loud, and I had this experience where it was almost like my whole body was like something was happening to my body. It was kind of interesting, and it was really
Like pain?
It was like pain, but it was also like all of the beings of it felt like the beings of the trees and the beings of the animals and everything were there. But I was like merging into them, and it was painful, but it was also felt good, and I just started crying. And I think that for a long time, and then I fell asleep. And then I woke up the next day, and it was like a different world. It was like the jungle had initiated me almost. But I didn't experience the silence because it was so loud. It was, yeah. But I felt at that point like almost like I would in the forest here, but still there was some unknowns, but I felt safe to kind of venture out and explore. And but yeah, it was painful and scary, and I'm grateful that it happened. But
Wow.
yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it was kind of like one of these situations where you can't turn back once you realize you're there and it's dark. And you're like, oh, okay. And I realized in all of my travels, I had always been around people until that moment. It's kind of went all around the world, but then there's just always people there.
Beautiful story.
Yeah.
Sounds like you created your own little initiation.
But it was totally not intentional. It was more of like I was almost like desiring solitude so much that drove me to that. Yeah.
Nice. That answers. I was gonna ask like what motivated it, and
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
And I was in this different culture, and everybody wanted to know all of these different things, and they didn't speak such great English, and it was just really kind of, okay, I just need to process a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and interesting that you felt that call, that you had that somewhere inside of you, that knowing of the potential that lay in that solitude, right? That like,
yeah,
that could be a resource for you.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that, but yeah. Thank you.
It's great to hear these experiences. Is there anybody else that wants to speak or could carry on a little further? I'm wanting this to be a kind of, as you can see, a bit of a back and forth, a collaborative picture building.
Yeah, I could share. I'll try to be kind of concise, but I also had a kind of really right before I entered into the kind of anthroposophy study for it, like a week before I joined the first study group of How to Know Higher Worlds, I was researching the saguaro cactus with this creative story, and went to meet some of them and find a cactus who could be my friend. That anyhow, I got down there, and there's so many qualities to what was happening there with the nature, but essentially I came for the day of the harvest of the fruits, and you gather all these luscious fruits, or the skin is really luscious and the fruit is sort of like a soft mushy berry that hardens and blackens in like the pristine desert as it dries in the sun. But you gather them and you point all the this is a Yaqui tradition. You gather them and you point all the fruit shell, like the husks, to the east, and let the creator know that you can bring the rain now. And so we pointed them all to the east. We wanted a little gathering individually around this quiet desert, and then the storm started coming. And that night I was in the tent by myself because I was going to spend a day or something there. And I was just, I think like Johanna, just so overwhelmed with, well, I was hearing all these other people in the rain and having strange visions of like other families all around me. And I got really overwhelmed by, I guess, the solitude, maybe just getting out of the city. And here comes James. And definitely kind of panicking. And I had a cell phone, so I called my girlfriend at the time. I needed to like talk through what I was experiencing, and it really helped me calm down. But I really only found my catharsis when I started drawing, and it just helped all the tears come out, and really helped me be there and move through whatever was there. And yeah, something about the pencil and the paper and the just almost the texture of the sound in my hand and the rain. Eventually I could like breathe and calm down, but it sort of feels like getting broken in by the desert. Yeah. But maybe I wish I didn't have a cell phone so that I could have just got destroyed without that crutch. Broke through by myself.
Yeah, so I'm hearing this like being part of this pretty powerful ritual, you know, and then getting, you know, being left alone in the afterglow of that, and yeah, feeling a kind of unmediated relationship with the earth.
Yeah.
Having that work on you.
Yeah. Totally.
There's a piece that's coming up for me around attachment, and you know, oh, here comes Chris too. Thank you, James, and what's your name? Oh, no microphone.
Zuri.
Zuri, thanks for finding a way to come in, bring your
Thank
faces
you.
in.
Sorry, we were invisible and unhearable there for the beginning.
Yeah, but now you're here with us, and beautiful windows behind you, and beautiful azure wall. Yeah. It's like a straw bale house, maybe.
Not quite. My mom wishes it were, though.
Yeah. Welcome, Chris. Thank you. Can't hear you. Yeah.
Same problem.
Oh, it's gone. I was just gonna say, you know, like what necessitates that, because these rites of passage have been present. They're kind of pan-cultural, right? They've been present in most, or if not all, intact cultures throughout a long time. And Chris,
Mic check. Can you hear me now?
we hear you.
So I'm like, I say.
That's
setting
okay.
noise.
Yeah. We were just sharing a little bit of experiences of solitude in the wilderness, or not. I guess solitude in the wilderness. And another friend might come in too. Talking about this experience of going out and getting kind of worked by just being alone in the wild. And why does that happen? And why is that important? Why does that need to happen? You know? And it's not just about modernity, right? Like you might think, oh, it's because we grew up in the city, or grew up in the, you know, in this modern world of comforts. But it can't just be that, because this has been going on since way before there was the modern comforts that we have, you know? And so to me, I think it has to do with attachment, and it has to do with the way that we grow up to a certain point, the way that the human being comes into the world with this incredible need for attachment, this incredible need for support, and to feel a sense of belonging, you know, more so than the animal kingdom, where the process of development from needing the parent to being totally independent on our own is much shorter, right? Okay. A few months for a deer. But for us, ideally, we have that that strong container, that strong attachment container for many, many years, for let's say 21, right? And so it becomes this really ingrained way of being in relationship, of being kind of held, of feeling that we're supported. And I think that's where the need comes to actually go out and kind of, at a certain point when we're ready, experience ourselves in contrast to that, experience our aloneness. We actually have to kind of die, allow something in ourselves, something in that sense of security in being with others to go through a death process, so that we can realize actually we've come to a point in our lives where we can handle the world and its inputs on our own. We don't need that attachment in the same way that we did before. We don't need that in the same way. We can step into our individual I. So yeah, that was just coming up as we were talking. And the flip side of that is, okay, what happens if that doesn't happen? What happens if we don't get the opportunity to go and do that? And that opportunity can come in many ways, and people can develop this sense of self-reliance in different ways. But our soul life can be, and I would guess that you can relate to this, our soul life can be a bit consuming, and the kind of experience of emotionality can be, I want to say, a distraction, or it can be a kind of like it can be experienced almost as a hindrance in a certain way, if it's not held in check, right? Where we can kind of get really drawn into different people's worlds in one way, which is maybe like looking for like a kind of attachment seeking mode of being, where we're kind of looking for affirmation through relationship to the other. Or we can kind of push people away a lot, because there's always this fear of like, is that person going to meet me? Am I safe? Right? And there's all these different ways that emotions can just kind of run the show. And we could say in the anthroposophical picture of the human being that's the soul life, right? And it's somehow not in kind of right relationship with the spirit, with our ego, with our individuality. And what becomes possible, I would suggest, in the rite of passage, in going into the jungle in Laos, or the the desert, or wherever that may be, is that the soul, our individual soul, kind of gets to have a meeting with the world soul, you know, with this larger soul of the earth. And there's an opportunity there for kind of a regulatory experience to happen, for our soul to is this you're laughing? Am I making? Is this? Am I totally at lunch here?
It's like, yeah, totally. It's like a juice cleanse for your soul.
Like a juice cleanse, but also think of it like this little soul that's kind of wandering through the world and kind of, you know, bumping up against all these other individual souls that have their own kind of like drawing away or pulling too close, or and then we get to kind of swim in this bigger soul, you know. And in that process, that mama soul, the earth, can kind of work on us if we let her, right? And kind of smooth out the edges, kind of like going through the rock tumbler, right? And this happens in different places. It happens in community too, like in a Camp Hill, you know, where people are always having to live together and interact and work out their shit. There's a bit of that rock tumbler. I have that experience at the co-housing community where I live. There's a bit of that rock tumbler effect where whatever is going on internally, you know, you're kind of bumping up against each other all the time, and your rough edges kind of get smoothed out. But that takes a long time for that to happen, and somehow my experience was going out into the woods, being kind of just in that unmediated relationship with the earth, that there was a greatly accelerated process of soul development and kind of soul regulation. And I'm using regulation in the term of like, in the way of like self-regulation versus feeling. Is that a way of using it that feels familiar? Not like regulations, like laws.
It sounds sort of like it's a concentration of your clarifying insight, you know? Your forces for clear sight sort of become potent.
And that's allowed because the astral soul body isn't so
agitated.
And that's what I mean by regulation. Yeah, if we could kind of describe that as like regulated or agitated or unregulated. I think we talk about this in child development. The ability to self-regulate, so that when stimulus comes in, do they get kind of thrown off their center in a different way, or are they able to kind of find a way to integrate it all and stay in the middle? And so the amazing thing is that we don't have to do much for that to happen. We actually need to do less. You know, this act of going out into the wilderness and just being there is more like a stripping down than an adding on. you know. This is a friend of mine joining us who actually
Ariel, can you repeat that again, please?
I said that it's more like a stripping down than an adding on. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, thanks for letting me show up late.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Michael's a friend from here who helped organize, who hosted the fast, and yeah, brought it all together. So it's really nice to have him here. We were talking a little bit about it last night, and he's at work but tuning in just to hear. And I'll just catch you up. Well, I don't know if I can catch you up to speed on everything that's been said. We were just talking about the way that why a rite of passage like this solitude in the wilderness can be important, and what impact that has on our being and our being able to show up in the world. Grace, you were asking for repetition. Is that sufficient? Do you want to ask more questions? Maybe I'll just stop there and see what's bubbling.
I think I was trying to just understand what is the picture of, you say pulling out, ripping off versus adding on?
Yes.
I think I was trying to understand that picture.
Right. So, I know that you do some counseling work, and I do a lot of that too, and spend a lot of time going to talk to people about my feelings and what I'm going through and why it's hard. And there's kind of like, there's so many, more and more we have exercises and different ways that we can try to deal with whatever angst, whatever's coming up for us with our kind of in our evolutionary process. And what astounds me about fasting and solo time in the wilderness is that it feels kind of like the opposite of that in a certain sense, in the sense that you just go out and you just be there. You just be there. Be there. And if you wait long enough, something happens. And we get kind of transformed. There's an integratory process that occurs that happens no matter what we do out there. I spent probably half the time fantasizing about what I was going to do when I got back. Like just talk it away. And still, I came back in a totally different state of consciousness. There's a poem I wanted to share, and it feels like a good time. Can I do that? Yeah. It's called Nothing Comes. It goes, after all the hours of inspiration, sending sparks flaming into the night sky, after all that has been sacrificed in service of such pure intentions, after it all, a silence falls. A dreadful amnesia creeps in, blanketing that beating drum of a heart in a dark, smoky cloud. Those dreams which glowed the brightest are reduced to a dim haze, while others vanish altogether. Do not fear these awful happenings, as troubling as they seem, for there is no covering which can embrace the hard-won poetry of silence. Its presence welcomes the darkness of 1,000 cloaks and coverings. They only serve to deepen its unfolding. Sanctifying, they only serve to deepen its unfolding, sanctifying and fortifying its presence among us.
It's funny that you call it Nothing Comes. Just because it's just, yeah, just that pure, yeah. Well, funny. I try to word it. There is something about the purest or the truest revelation being reality itself. So maybe something of that.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone in Ariel. Wow, amazing, right? I think this importance of balancing with nature, this time in nature, right, to connect. I think that's a really strong theme, right? I've heard this on so many calls, so that's really important, especially in our frenetic, time these days, right, with all the, email, all that, right? So make sure to balance. It's really important, and the way you beautifully outline this also in the poem. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the poem and for sharing all of this. I think I've experienced in nature feeling like by stripping down, as you put it, and taking out all the distractions, in a way, it's possible to kind of feel or see the essential. That's how I've experienced it. And yeah, for me, I guess I've had a few, I can relate to the jungle experience and being places where I thought I was really comfortable with nature, and then all of a sudden feeling this kind of helplessness or unfamiliarity, and finding that I had to like find my own center in that. And then also being alone, one of the most powerful experiences for me was I was working on the Falkland Islands, which are little islands at the southern tip of South America. And I went for my birthday to this offshore island where there was just one farmhouse. And then there was this little house that I was staying in, which was like 2 hours away. And so the farmer dropped me off. And then I spent a couple of days there. I was eating, but there was no one in sight, just ocean and penguins. And so I remember I went out and I spent the whole day walking, and I was just, for me, it was like a really powerful experience. I felt very humbled and also empowered in a way. And I just walked and walked, and I ended up crying as well, but it was more because of the beauty. And then I remember in the evening, I sat down and I spent hours. I was just sitting in the middle of all these penguins and just watching them. and seeing all their little social dynamics and feeling like, okay, also this wholeness or feeling like kind of, yeah, this being of the earth so powerfully. And it was so beautiful and so quiet. And I just wanted to stay there forever until I got too cold. And then I had to go back to my little house. But yeah, I think it's so essential to have those experiences. And I was wondering also, Ariel-Paul, if you could share like how you feel the fasting adds to that, because that's something I've never done. And how do you experience, like I've spent a lot of time alone, but I've never done it fasting.
Cool. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I wonder if there's any other kind of bubbles surfacing that we want to catch as well, that I could then
Sure.
could also yeah.
Yeah, my experience of solitude in nature, but it is similar. I've noticed over time that nature alone isn't enough to find that restorative part. It is like a necessary emotional stripping down, mental stripping away of noise to reach the silence in it. If I'm disturbed in nature, it's not enough to reach that restorative place. I work outside, have been for many months now. And so I found that over the years, I tend to have many different impressions of intense moments or hours or many hours in a row, times to be in nature to dispel all the accumulated agitation. So some examples would be, and it's always, well, a very basic one, it's not maybe basic, but general, like that applies across the board for me has been in writing, that I prefer to write outside, and it's always a restorative experience when it's just you let things fall away, just sitting there waiting for the sort of wheel of thoughts to play themselves out and dissipate. And then that's a sort of processing that helps me. And otherwise, some examples have been I'll just give one brief one. So this summer, I was working as a carpenter's assistant, helping somebody renovate their garage space into a workshop. And around Father's Day, actually, I think on Father's Day itself, maybe the day after, I realized, I wasn't really paying attention. And I realized it was right around that time. And he was, spending time with his daughter. And it sort of hit me really hard. The way holidays tend to, especially Father's and Mother's Day, but in a way that Father's Day hadn't hit me before, that my struggles of connecting and relating to my own father and all the pent-up associated feelings about that, I just sort of let loose, and I felt very alone in that, and I couldn't hold it in any longer. It was also related to somebody in my community, their marriage was disintegrating, falling apart, and it just brought it all very strongly up in me, so I couldn't hold it anymore. And I told him when I came in that morning, told my boss, I've got some stuff going on, I'm not sure where I'm at. And over the course of the day, it just sort of fell apart, and I couldn't handle the work. And so I just left. and went out to, it was a stream nearby. It was underneath an overpass, or the bridge section, and it was something very, water has always been a very cathartic place, so it was sort of overgrown, there's green all around it. People crossing the bridge are, you know, driving fast, they're not looking down, nobody's gonna see me underneath the bridge in this little stream. So I just used it as a submersion experience, just going in the water and dispelling all that tension and just going underwater and yelling, just as a place to get out all the angst. And if you ever need to do some shouting, I recommend doing it underwater. It's very cathartic.
Wow. I'm gonna share a couple of things because we're getting to the end, and I want to make sure to speak to Zuri's question too before we close. Maybe I'll just check in. We had said we'd close at 10:15. Is there desire and capacity to go longer?
We could go a little bit longer. 15 more minutes.
10 more minutes, like to 10:30 or 1:30.
Yeah, I could go until 10:30, and I'll have to go.
Is anyone not able to go longer?
I can try here. I'm a little bit low on sleep, so I had like a call right before this, so it's kind of early, but I can, it's kind of a hectic day, but I could go maybe 10:30. Yeah.
I have 2 closings too. Get out early.
Need to get some time in nature later too. Can't forget that.
Yeah.
So get out there. Yeah, the fasting question is an interesting one. Wish I had more research on it, and maybe somebody else does. You guys, who's with us here, but just speaking from personal experience, I find fasting interrupts certain kind of behavior patterns. Like eating can be so tied to our astrality, to our soul life, you know. It's so pleasurable, it's so comforting, and stimulating, all these things. And so I find when I'm not eating, there's actually a kind of that has its own kind of regulatory process that occurs. Where my energy level, like the baseline lowers, but the fluctuation is less. You know, where where in a normal day, where I'm eating, it might be more like this, you know, eat, get energy, get sleepy. When I'm fasting, it's more like, you know, there's little fluctuations, but even with sleep, I don't sleep as much when I'm fasting. You know, I lie down and I don't fall asleep, because particularly, and the 4 days is a kind of traditional time period for a vision fast in a number of different indigenous communities. I'm not sure where that number comes from specifically, but it does give enough time. You know, with a fast, it's good. It takes some time for the body to acclimatize to the difference, and then it kind of creates this new baseline, and adjust, and then it's not. And that's my experience, and I feel it's important to say too that we're all constituted differently, so our bodies relate to fasting differently. But yeah, that's how it is for me. And I, even this past month, since doing this vision fast in September, I made a commitment to fast every month in connection with the new moon, as a way of, you know, keeping this thread alive. And this past month I fasted even without water mostly, and it was like, I don't know, somehow it was fine. Didn't even really change that much of what I was doing, working.
Did you say even with no water?
Yeah.
Oh my God. For how long?
Like 3 or 3.5 days. So the fourth day I got a little thirsty, and I had a few sips of water. But yeah.
Well, cannot imagine. Oh.
Right? Isn't it kind of strange? These things that we take so for granted as like, oh no, this is the way it is. And then to have it kind of flipped on its head, for me, kind of, yeah, surprising. And I want to emphasize again, my experience is not necessarily going to be your experience. So you really got to be in tune with yourself. And I've built it up. I built up a relationship to it over a couple of years of just starting with like, okay, day fast here, day fast there, 2 days, 3 days, and then so building up that capacity and that familiarity with the different quality of sensation that occurs, and the kind of comfort level with it. I'm like, oh yeah, it's natural. It's not. It's be okay. I want to, before we finish, I want to make sure to touch on a kind of like 3 components of rite of passage of any kind, or kind of this kind of experience. Actually, there's 2 things that I want to talk about a little bit. One being self-created ritual, and the other being the kind of the arc of an adventure like this, which has a kind of the departure from the norm, so the kind of choice to leave the familiar, and then there's which is for, you know, in Joseph's very, I got to use you as an example because it has the good, I don't know, it's illustrated, it feels easy. This like, okay, I need some solitude, this choice to leave and go to this kind of different space. Then the journey, the time that we're there, and how that unfolds, and then the return. And we haven't talked much about the return, and I apologize for not, you know, inviting that into the sharing that happened, because I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle as well, to understand then how do we bring these experiences back into our lives. And I'm curious, maybe James, like this experience you shared, if you feel like, you know, sharing this Father's Day moment of, okay, departure, journey, you know, going underwater, being by the stream, and then the return. What is it? What did the return feel like? And how was that? Because
I think that day in particular, I think I did come back to work a couple hours later, and I found that I needed to take the whole day off. I tried to work a bit more. I just kept making mistakes left and right. Spilled a can of paint over my boots, stuff like that. So it was a real signal to take some time out. There's a different brief anecdote of that, like submersion in nature, and then returning, where there's the same creek, but it's a different section in Hudson Valley, New York area, and the waterfall of it. And I was standing on the bluff next to the waterfall, and it's just this sort of valley area. And the pond at the bottom, the waterfall, it's just very picturesque and sort of a grand feeling. You know, this huge open space with the trees over the hills, great huge concavity there. And I think it was going into sunset, not quite sunset, you know, evening, and early fall, and I just been there for a while, half an hour maybe, and just really taking it all in. The space, watching the vultures especially fly around and the way they glided and so on, and there was just this feeling of expansion, sort of feeling the space. Like I was experiencing it on a much wider level than just my physical body. And that was a beautiful experience and very fulfilling. And then when I walked away, where I got to the top of the waterfall, there is a shortcut from the nearby parking lot. So I had to, you know, walk through the woods a bit, jump over another section of a tribute, running of a stream that branched off of the original. And just down the hill from that is this gravel parking lot, and you're right back in the middle of town. So it's this really experience of coming from all of that back into shrinking of awareness and just like being very small again in the middle of a different sort of grittier urban world, whereas being much more expanded in this natural beauty before.
Yeah, so I think it's a really important aspect of when we're looking at these types of experiences, how we integrate them, how we return, because it's not just the day. There's like the immediate after, and then there's the unfolding, the months, 2 months, a year, and how we build in the container, the supports, the practices that allow those experiences to manifest in long-standing change in our lives and in a kind of purpose and meaning and embodiment through the will. And that aspect, I think, is particularly challenging in modernity because of the lack of integration that we can experience socially within social communities. So where an initiatory experience like this traditionally would have happened for people within a culture where they were sent out by their elders who've seen them grow up, had the experience, come back, shared their stories with the elders, been witnessed by their elders, and then invited into a life in service based on the experiences that they've had and held kind of in integrity with that. To create that kind of container for ourselves in this modern time is a challenge. I don't want to generalize because everybody lives in unique contexts and settings, but I think for many that is the case. We definitely looked at that with Michael and the others in preparing this quest is how do we start to build this community? Because the rite of passage is not just for ourselves, but so that we can be in service, right? So that we can bring something, bring our fullest expression into service. And that's a little bit what that poem, that Nothing Comes poem. There was a different one I should have shared at the point of your question, Glacy, and I'm sorry. There's another one called Waiting, which I think is better for that moment. But that Nothing Comes poem is really about that, struggling with that question. You know, my own struggle and way of reckoning with that challenge.
Are you referring especially to that question of integration, one's experiences of?
Right, yeah, these intense, beautiful experiences, which just somehow slip away.
I wonder if I could ask, just wondering, because I know you have the Dennis Klochek translations often. The verse for this week also feels really resonant with this idea of making a place in the cosmic self too. I wonder, unless you had the Dennis one, I'd love to add that to the space too.
I don't, yeah. Well, how about, what if we close with that? We're at 10:25. We have 5 minutes left. I'd love to hear if there's any more bubbles coming to the surface. Any kind of closing reflections, takeaways, inspirations, and please try to be succinct so that make space for us all.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to say I really appreciated what you brought as far as the relationship between moving from a place of attachment and our attachments to this place of self-reliance and healing of the soul life that can take place during these moments, and how potent and medicinal they really are for healing. I got more to think about. So thank you.
Glad that came through.
Yeah. Thank you, Hannah. That was well put, and I'm still holding this image in myself of this picture of the cleaning out and then tuning in. This kind of, because you can't tune in if it's full of other stuff. And maybe it's that silence and that solitude that opens that, and then out of that emptiness, there can become like a resonance that can meet. Something that came to me. You were sharing. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing from your experiences. And I'm going to try fasting in nature sometime soon.
I'm gonna put in a.
Yes,
Sorry.
I second that. Thank you so much. This has been really, really meaningful. Sorry, I haven't been able to be on the video, and it's been noisy here, so I've been muted, but really appreciated sharing all of this with you guys, so thank you.
Just put in, sorry, Gracie, go ahead.
So wanted to just, share my gratitude. I think I am at the moment going through a rite of passage and living community, as you have mentioned. It happens more often than you would think, but then you never have the space to actually consider it as a rite of passage. And this image of how beneficial it is for you and how it is for the community too, and for everybody around you when you come out of it. And so I'm holding these pictures very dearly. So I'm very grateful for your sharing, especially at this time, and for everybody sharing as well.
I'm sorry we didn't get to hear more of your story. I would like to. Maybe on the other side of it. I just put in the chat window a link to the Animas Valley Institute. It's animas.org. Bill Plotkin is a depth psychologist who founded the Animas Valley Institute out of his understanding of the importance of soul work and initiatory experiences, and trying to recreate the possibility of that for people in our times who are, who don't have that mentorship in their lives. So that was actually the rite of passage that, or the vision fast that we did was led by a guide who trained at Animas Valley Institute. Bill Plotkin was mentored. I don't know by who, but so there's just wanted to put that out, that community, the Animas Valley Institute, is quite strong in this, in trying to address this question, and at this point have guides kind of that they've trained and that are spread all throughout the continent. So it's I just express the gratitude for that insight and that effort to anchor that, and also to say that can be a jumping off point for further inquiry and so forth. Because there's a difference too between going and doing it kind of solo and self-led, and then going with guidance and with some invitation and container. And there's aspects of that we didn't get into today, and could maybe be the subject of a follow-up conversation for sure. There's some important aspects of that. Ritual, feeling help, spiritual. Probably don't be that way. Any other final comments?
You really created a wonderful space here. I feel really nourished by what's been here. I feel like inviting us all to create it together, and with the stories feels so valuable and essential, vital. I just really appreciate how you hosted and how we all shared the space. Thank you.
Honor.
Thank you so much.
There will be another Insight open mic on the 2nd of January with Russell Arnold about the language of change, totally different kind of initiations through physics and math and the transitioning futures and the possibilities in understanding differential equations. So that should be also interesting.
I can't wait for that. Holy cow.
Yeah, cool stuff. Should I bring this one here, or is the stars one even more resonant still?
I think you're inspired to bring it.
Yeah, I am. Okay, I'm gonna bring it. Thank you. 35th week. Can I know life's reality so that it's found again within my soul's creative urge? I feel that I am granted power to make myself as humble part at home within the cosmic self. Three times? Okay, great. Can I know life's reality so that it's found again within my soul's creative urge? I feel that I am granted power to make myself as humble part at home within the cosmic self. Can I know life's reality so that it's found again within my soul's creative urge? I feel that I am granted power to make myself as humble part at home within the cosmic self. Thanks. Maybe we'll meet you again another time, Michael. Thanks for being here too. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Happy Christmas. Happy New Year's.
Hey.
Bye.
A New Year's Zoom though.
Thank you. Bye.
Advent.
Yeah, maybe we should have a special kind of Holy Nights.
Holy Nights things happening, right? Anyone go on any?
Good idea.
Gathering.